Silent Hill F is the first Silent Hill after the remake of the second part, does not have any firearms, moves the setting to Japan and has a female protagonist. How Silent Hill F plays, whether the story is as deep and profound as Silent Hill 2, and whether it really is a Soulslike, you'll find out in this spoiler-free review. Let's talk about it. Hey, I'm Andy, welcome to Rely on Horror. When I first heard about Silent Hill F, I was more than skeptical. Not because of the setting, but because of the developer. Neobards Entertainment is based in Taiwan, and besides rather average remasters like the Devil May Cry HD collection or the Dead Rising Deluxe remaster, they also made such terrible games as Resident Evil Resistance or Resident Evil Reverse. Accordingly, my hope wasn't very high, and to be honest, I expected the worst. What came out, however, is a game I had a lot of fun with. It is certainly not perfect, but a step in the right direction. Let's start with the graphics. Visually, Silent Hill F is slightly behind the second remake most of the time. It looks beautiful, has great lighting and shadow effects, but occasionally suffers from bleak and minimalist locations. That does not make Silent Hill F ugly at all, but you notice a difference when you are in areas with flat lighting and few details compared to dungeons dominated by fire and shadows. For example, I found the water effects better in Silent Hill 2, but the fog in Silent Hill F feels much more natural to me. There are also moments where you have slight indoor hints of fog or particle effects that greatly contribute to the atmosphere. Even though I enjoy good graphics, in the end it's not as important to me as long as the gameplay and the story are good. Since there are no essential plot spoilers in this review, I just want to briefly outline the scenario and the basic theme. The story of Silent Hill F takes place in rural Japan in the 1960s and revolves around high school student Hinako Shimizu, whose town is swallowed by fog and overrun by monsters. As in all Silent Hill titles, the plot naturally goes much deeper and this time has themes such as friendship, family, coming of age and the breakdown of anachronistic social structures in the background. There are, however, moments that are very on the nose for Silent Hill standards, which always annoys me when something like that is done, because especially in Silent Hill, I love putting the story puzzle pieces together myself to work out the subtext. Of course you can still do that, but it's made noticeably easier. The enemy design is again part of the subtext and is more or less creatively woven into story and gameplay. Speaking of which, let's talk about the core, the gameplay. A large part revolves around stamina management, and that is probably also the reason why many have drawn the comparison to so-called Souls-like games, because that is also an issue there. Nevertheless, Silent Hill F still lacks some other characteristics to be able to call it a Souls-like. As in past Silent Hill titles, both the action difficulty and the puzzle difficulty can be set separately. At the beginning, 3 different difficulty levels were selectable: Story, which is easy, Hardcore, and Lost in the Fog, which is supposed to be very hard. Similar to Resident Evil 3 back in 1999, this form of description is rather difficult in my opinion. Back then you could only choose between easy and hardcore, which led many to try easy first because hardcore was too intimidating. But on easy, the experience was massively watered down. Silent Hill F has a similar problem. Story is definitely easy, but I would call hardcore normal and Lost in the Fog hard. I think the problem is simply due to the game's core gameplay mechanics, because Silent Hill F sends anyone who tries to defeat enemies without tactics to the afterlife within seconds. This is even pushed to the extreme with some boss enemies, And you have almost no chance if you don't memorize their movement and attack patterns. But once you internalize them, it's all doable, but can still lead to frustration for some players because you have to approach it with trial and error in some cases. On hardcore difficulty, Silent Hill F still offers plenty of checkpoints and is also more than generous with resources. You even can find mirrors that prevent you from dying if you equip them. You're almost flooded with health items and weapons, and I rarely had real resource scarcity. In total, you can always carry 3 weapons at the same time, each of which has a light and a heavy attack and differs in attack power, speed, and also durability. Weapons wear down over time, but don't worry, you can find both replacement weapons and tools to repair them. Such mechanics annoy me in most cases, but surprisingly not in Silent Hill F. The weapons and the impact feels consistently good, and you notice a clear difference between a sledgehammer and a kitchen knife. It is important to develop a sense of timing, damage, and surroundings. If you do that, most enemies are not a big problem. Many monsters can also be bypassed even if they stand in the middle of the street. Just use your dodge mechanic to avoid them. It's very useful, but just as an attack, it consumes your stamina, therefore stamina management. If you see a shrine, you should go there immediately. Not only can you save your progress here, you also have the opportunity to sell offerings via Enshrine. This gives you faith points that you can use in connection with so-called Emma plagues to upgrade your health, sanity, or stamina bars. In addition, you can also level up the number of your Omamori slots. These small pouches give you additional skills that you can choose according to your playstyle. Apart from your physical health, your mental health can also take damage, which is visible on the bar above the normal health display. Some enemy attacks target this, and if it should ever be empty, these attacks will also reduce your normal health. I first found the idea quite nice, but practically speaking, it actually had no impact on me because you always find enough items to cure this condition. Therefore, I mainly went for stamina when leveling up to be able to have more options in battles. Especially with multiple boss attacks, you can run quickly out of breath, and if this happens most of the time, you're screwed. Everyone has to find a tactic they feel comfortable with. By the way, I found the access to items for healing or repair with LB or L1 on the controller and then pressing the buttons very pleasant. I also found the art design of the map very appealing, well structured and easy to use. With a quick press on Y or triangle, you are immediately shown where the next goal is. And then there's one thing I absolutely have to mention because it is so lovingly designed. Hinako's diary. You open it with the D-pad and you can look up tutorials, puzzle hints, general information, but also impressions of monsters and characters. You really get a good overview and a better impression of the overall picture of the situation. Besides the action part, puzzles have always been a central part of the series in Silent Hill, as in most other survival horror games as well. That is also the case again in Silent Hill F. Here too I choose the difficulty hardcore and never had serious problems. Sure, you sit at some puzzles a little bit longer than at others, but after some time I always came to the solution. For me, it was always exactly the right balance between challenging but not frustrating. There could even have been a few more if you ask me. As far as pacing is concerned, Silent Hill F is definitely a better game than Silent Hill 2 Remake, but even here I felt slight stretches in the last third. I remember a moment where I thought that must be the final boss, but that was not the case. If you play Silent Hill F the first time on hardcore difficulty, it should take you around 12 hours. On easy, it's probably around 8 to 10. The soundtrack and the ambient noise are well chosen most of the time, but there were also moments when they were almost a bit too intrusive for me. Classical Japanese musical instruments fitting to the setting were used, which also sounds eerie, but occasionally just becomes a little bit annoying. So, what is my conclusion about Silent Hill F? I think it brings a refreshing breeze to the combat system, especially with the focus on stamina resource management. I really like that bosses in particular can really be demanding, and that due to the lack of firearms you almost have to enter into an intimate combat relationship with them, even though common sense should advise distance. The story was not too bad, but I would have liked a little bit more subtlety. It definitely feels like a Silent Hill game, but tries new ways with both the setting and the gameplay. The transition to the other world is also presented differently here than we know, and even surprises in the last third with a rather interesting creative choice that has an impact on story, visuals, and even gameplay. I can't go into detail here for spoiler reasons, but I give the game credit for that because it was a bold and creative decision. And I'm honest, I did not expect this quality from Neobots at all. Also, in terms of animation and many other small details found in the game, I was surprised. Is it perfect or on a level with the first 3 Silent Hill games? No, certainly not. But I found it clearly better than Silent Hill Downpour or Homecoming. I can recommend this game to every survival horror fan who is not turned off by the setting, the plot theme, or the trial and error gameplay in the boss fights. And even if it's not worth the full price for you right now, it is worth grabbing during a sale or on PS Plus or a similar offer. Now, as always, I want to know your opinion on Silent Hill F. Are you excited to finally play a high quality Silent Hill that is not a remake? Or would you rather wait for a remake of the first one? However you see it, write it to us in the comments. Thank you for watching, and I see you in the next video.